Welcome to Secret Story. Dear friends, thank you very much for watching. Leave comments, put likes, share with friends and subscribe to the channel. My story begins when my family visited my aunt and uncle's house over the summer. I was going into my senior year of high school and it was time for our family's annual visit to my Aunt April's house. She was my mom's sister and they had always been very close, always making sure to keep in touch and visit. It would most likely be my last family trip for a while since I was going off to college the following year. I didn't mind going at all. We usually had a good visit and I always enjoyed using their pool and jacuzzi. I have a pretty cool family in the regard that they love to drink, stay up late, go for late night swims, and generally let loose. I looked forward to these trips, because it was the only time my mom would really let me drink with the family. Aunt April was married to Uncle Dan and they had 2 kids, a boy and girl. My cousin Josh was a few years older than me and my cousin Nicole was a year younger. I liked being able to hang out with them since I was an only child and thought of them as brother and sister. Josh and I got along pretty well since we had a lot of the same interests. Nicole was always pretty shy and really only talked when she needed to. She was more of the sheltered type, which was weird since her mom was more social and outgoing. Aunt April was my mom's older sister and you could definitely see their resemblance. April had long black hair with a gorgeous face and unforgettable blue eyes. My mom has a really pretty face as well with short brown hair and brown eyes. We had a little Spanish in our gene pool so it gave them both just that perfect splash of tan on their skin year-round. Aunt April's physique was unreal. I never really thought of it and it was weird to think of. Hey, we're both fitness freaks too, which gave them flat stomachs. This especially was impressive for 2 women in the early 40s, my mom being 41 and my aunt being 43, that it wasn't until I got older that I began to notice that my Aunt April's appearance was really quite intimidating. She was the type of woman that if you caught a glimpse of her walking into a room that you would almost freeze. I remember feeling almost afraid to a degree to look at her again in fear of not being able to control my eyes. It was the first day at their house as we arrived in the late afternoon. We had left early and my dad had made great time on the interstate. At the halfway point of the 3-hour drive, we unpacked the car and went into the house, which seemed empty. I went and threw my bags in the guest room I was staying in and paced toward the bathroom to finally get some relief. Opening the door, I was immediately paralyzed at the sight of Aunt April. "Mike. Oh honey, I didn't know you made it here already," she said as her startled look quickly vanished once she registered it was me. I'm so sorry Aunt April, I just really had to use the restroom and honestly didn't know you were in here." "Oh Mikey, please, it's no problem at all baby." She was obviously not ashamed and had such a calm about her as she washed her hands. That's when I noticed her eyebrows go up and eyes widen as she looked toward me. I tried my best to hide my shame with my hands, but that was never easy for me. She said with a smile as she gave me a hug. "I'm so happy you guys made it." I'm still not sure what I said after that. I don't know, I guess I went on autopilot or something. END Chapter 1, Chapter 2. Later that evening, after we had unpacked and settled in, we all ate dinner. After dinner, Mom and Aunt April opened up a bottle of wine, getting the night started. I was trying to avoid Aunt April after our incident earlier. I was hoping she wouldn't say anything to my mom. I was sitting in the living room talking to Josh and Nicole when my aunt walked in and gave Josh a glass of wine. She walked over to me with another glass in her hand and huge smile on her face. I kept replaying the image of her over in the bathroom. I couldn't even think straight. "Here you go Mikey, don't drink too fast now. It's going to be a long night. We're going to jump into the jacuzzi later. You brought your trunks, right?" "Thanks Aunt April. I left it at our house." "Oh no worries, you can borrow some of Josh's." "Yeah, no problem dude," Josh said as he went to get a pair for me. The problem with this was that Josh is way smaller than me. I'm 6'2" and way taller than him and I had really long legs. He brought me the pair of swim trunks and sure enough it might as well have been a Speedo. I hid my look of disappointment and went to my guest room. Holy shit, this was going to be bad. I was staring down at my situation as I heard my door swing open. Come on Mikey, everybody is getting in the pool and jackass. I looked up to see Aunt April was at the doorway. Oh my god Mikey, wow that is such a, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were still getting ready. I'll be in jacuzzi. Take your time. And she began to slowly close the door. Wait. What the was I doing? She slightly opened the door again, trying to play that game of self-control, attempting not to keep staring. These trunks are way too small and I'm having a little trouble with. She looked up at me finally. Well sweetie, let me see if I can help you, she said, walking in and shutting the door behind her. When she walked in, obviously this didn't help my situation. Wow Mikey, I had no idea. I had no idea you were having such trouble with Josh's trunks. Her words stumbled, her breathing rate started to slowly increase. Let me see if I can help get you. We didn't say anything. That's when we heard the backyard sliding door in the living open. We both stood up. Well, I'm glad I could help you, she said as we fell back to reality. I'll be outside with everyone, so just come out when you're ready. Yeah, thanks again for the help, big time. I'll be out there. She turned and swiftly left the room. END Chapter 2, Chapter 3. By this time, everyone was outside, presumably drinking, swimming, and if I stayed inside any longer my mom would come find me. I opened my door and could hear the music from the backyard blaring and the sounds of everyone talking and laughing. Okay, game time. It was time for me face the music, literally and figuratively, raging hard on and all. I took one last glance in a mirror. Good lord. Close my eyes. Okay. Furniture. A desk in the living room. Nothing about that, there we go. Deep breathe. Deep breathe. Suddenly, this isn't working. God, it was so hot though. I felt powerless. Did she feel the same? What about Uncle Dan? What about my mom? Her kids? Too many questions, and I decided to forget about it. It was nothing anyways, right? She just helped me. I'm thinking too much into it. I'm her nephew. I went outside and saw my dad, Josh, and Nicole were down the steps of the patio in the swimming pool playing water basketball and drinking. Up on the patio was a little outside bar they had and my favorite jacuzzi. Uncle Dan, my mom, and Aunt April were in there. I quickly found a towel to strap around my waist and made a hard liquor drink at the bar. Then Mom called me over. Come on Mikey. Come relax in the hot tub with us. Yes sport. Come join the fun. Uncle Dan shouted in a laughing drunken tone. I think they were all getting pretty buzzed and loose at this point. I apprehensively approached the tub, taking a massive swig of my drink. Aunt April seemed nonchalant, just holding her drink, chatting with my mom, which made me wonder if my last assessment was right. Yeah, I'm her nephew and she just helped me out, that's all. I tried to make a snappy entrance into the jacuzzi, taking my to-go undetected. Once I was in and we all started talking, I noticed Uncle Dan was pretty drunk. To my shock, my mom was actually amused by his antics, egging him on for more. Aunt April had the same attitude, however something was off. I would find her throwing me these deep looks with those blue eyes and little almost secret smiles. Hey kiddo! Uncle Dan yelled. I snapped out my fantasy. Go put the jets on in this so we can get some bubbles and have a little privacy under the water, he jokingly said as he grinned, looking toward my aunt and mom's direction. Yeah sure, you got it. I jumped out real fast and put the jets on. Then I went to the bar to get another drink and was feeling pretty loose. Casually walking back toward them, I felt a little worried somehow. It was like I was letting my guard down or something, but didn't know why yet. I saw Aunt April was staring at me hard as my uncle was telling another story to my mom. There was no question now. I looked down and saw why. Without thinking, I hurried and bolted into the tub as fast as I could. I didn't even realize I was now sitting right next to Aunt April. The jets were on full force and bubbles were everywhere. Uncle Dan was to the right, Aunt April, I was to her left, and Mom was leaning back with her eyes closed on the other end just listening to the music. Uncle Dan was talking softly to my aunt now and I could make out movement under the water. Holy shit. And right next me, as I began to put my hands up to lift out of the hot tub, I suddenly felt a hand stop me. She wasn't looking at me and was still completely fixated on Uncle Dan, but Aunt April. I couldn't believe it. She still wasn't looking at me and I tried to act casual. Uncle Dan, completely oblivious to his wife's side project. There was no telling how much there actually was because of the jet bubbles. END Chapter 3, Chapter 4. I felt considerably relaxed sitting in the hot tub. She left the jacuzzi. I wanted the real thing that I quickly got out of the jacuzzi. I headed inside, leaving my poor unsuspecting mother still sitting. Glanced around to get a quick account of everyone's condition. My dad, Josh, and Nicole were still in the pool playing around. I saw Nicole acting extremely out of character, talking and giggling rather loud, and her voice seemed slurred. I had never seen her drunk before and honestly didn't even know she drank. I was a man on a mission though, so I quickly disregarded the atypical behavior and moved towards the door. I opened the sliding door to an empty living room and heard movement in the kitchen. My heart was pounding. I tried to act calm, strolling into the kitchen where I found Aunt April cutting some limes for drinks. She knew I was there, yet didn't say anything. That I cleared my throat. Hey Aunt April, what ya doing? She looked over at me with a coy look as if nothing had happened in the hot tub, yet seemingly enjoying the act she was playing with an innocent smile. Oh hey there Mikey, I didn't see you come, she said. Oh my god Aunt April, I definitely came all over. She quickly cut me off, finishing her sentence after a purposeful pause which I could only assume was to with my head. Inside the house sweetie. She said with another innocent expression and tone as to ask what I wanted. You need something? I'll be back outside in a moment. I walked out of the kitchen into living room and then the door rapidly slid open. Nicole bolted into the room as if she was searching for something. Her face lit up when she saw me. Mikey. Oh my god. Where have you been? Hey yeah, I was coming inside to, use the restroom. What are you up to? Just having a great time and wanted to see you. I have to use the restroom too, but I'll let you go first. She said with a mischievous grin as her eyes stared into mine. The kitchen was dead quiet and I could feel my Aunt April listening to our every exchange. Okay cool, yeah sure, sounds good Nicole. Even though there was obviously more than one bathroom in the house, this was strange. I had never seen Nicole act like this before. Actually I had never seen her drink before either. The drinks had evidently shattered her walls on shyness. Nicole had soft blonde hair rolled into pigtails with little blue ribbons. I went into the bathroom. Nicole walked into my guest room directly across the hall and sat on my bed with the door open. That I wasn't sure what she had in mind. Even if she really was trying to come on to me, was it purely out of curiosity or was she just too shy before to express herself? My brainstorm session suddenly came to a halt as I heard from my room. Nicole? I called out. I can't hold it any longer. Do you mind if I come in? I promise I won't look. Sure, yeah I guess. The door opened and Nicole stepped. Well hello there, cause she giggled again. Sorry about that Nicole, as I jostled to hide it. Please Mikey, don't be. Wow, you've got quite the problem there. Let me help you with that. She leaned over. I was speechless. A moment later she giggled with a demeanor of glee that I enjoyed it. I'll just be outside and let you clean up. Sounds like a plan. I'll see you later on, she said. That's when I noticed it. The door was half open the whole time. Fear and paranoia took over my body as I opened the door to leave. And there she was. Directly across the hallway in my guest room, sitting back on my bed, Aunt April. END Chapter 4, Chapter 5. Consumed with fear and anxiety, I quickly stepped out the bathroom into the hall. Closing the door behind me, I hoped Nicole wouldn't notice her mother. How long had she been there? Why didn't she say anything? Would she tell my mom? Questions raced around in my head with no answers. Aunt April stood up off my bed. I was motionless when I suddenly heard footsteps coming from the living room. Uncle Dan stumbled into the hall. "Mikey, my man. Whatcha doing, kiddo?" I was speechless as my uncle began to look puzzled to why I couldn't answer him. "You all right there, Mike?" he said with concern now. He was just relieving himself. Aunt April said calmly, as she now walked into the hall with us. "Oh hey, I'm going to lie down." "Welp, have fun, kiddo, don't party too hard tonight. I think you may have reached your limit," Uncle Dan said with a chuckle. "Ha, yeah, you got it, Uncle Dan," as I finally was able to mutter something out of my mouth and shake off my deer-in-headlights look. Uncle Dan gave Aunt April a small kiss, then winked at her softly, saying, "Thanks for earlier, babe, you're the best. Sorry, I'm just too tired to keep up with you ladies. Let me know tomorrow if I missed anything big tonight," as he proceeded down the hall. "Of course, hun," then her voice trailed off. "I'm sure we can find something big to do tonight. Don't you think?" Looking at me now innocently, he walked towards the end of the hall and went into their bedroom to pass out, leaving me alone with Aunt April. I couldn't bring myself to look directly at her, as I rubbed the back of my neck nervously, staring at the ground. "What's the matter, Mikey? You look tense, something wrong?" she said with a subtle grin, toying with me. "Oh, what? No, I'm fine." Yeah, I bet, sweetie," as she leaned in close to me. "I'll find you later," she quietly said. She walked back outside and I walked into my room, shutting the door and collapsing on my bed. All the drinks and physical and mental fatigue of the night started to set in. I closed my eyes and fell into an alcohol-induced nap. I woke to the sound of voices in the living room. Quickly sitting up, I looked at the clock on the bedstand to see how long I passed out. It was 11:30 at night now. I must have slept for a solid hour, but it felt like days. I tried to shake my grogginess, but decided to give in, lying back on the bed and closing my eyes. My feet were facing the door, dangling off the mattress as I continued to lie sideways across my bed in the same position I collapsed into, too tired to move yet. Just as I was about to fall back asleep, I heard my door slowly creak open. I still don't know why, but I kept my eyes closed as I heard whispering with quiet laughter from what appeared to be my mom and Aunt April. Mom sounded off and I could definitely tell she had her fair share of drinks. "Oh, now, would you look at that? What a lightweight," my mom laughed to Aunt April. I don't know about lightweight, sis." "Shut up, April, or you'll wake him, and stop being ridiculous. My poor boy still has that thing on. He must have passed out from all those drinks with it on. We need to help him. You know." My heart raced as I listened intently to their every word, deciphering their intent in the tones of voice. I could hear my mom step closer as Aunt April gently closed the door. After recharging my batteries with a power nap, I didn't know what was going to happen. I felt my mom sit on the bed next to me as I continued to act asleep with my eyes closed. "Well, what should I do? I think he's pretty gone, sis. We have to get these things off Kim." "Well, I don't want to do it, I'm his mother." "Isn't that weird? What if he wakes up?" "Please, it's no big deal, sis, here, I'll help." "Well, yeah, I guess we should make sure it's okay and everything's working properly." My eyes creaked open just slightly enough for me to see and not be detected. As she looked back toward me, she saw my eyes open, that I had gotten lazy in all the commotion, and hoped she would just go with it. My mom couldn't bring herself to words. I was as helpless as her, not knowing what to say, if anything. What's going on, Mom?" She looked at me sweetly, attempting to block the view of Aunt April. "Shoo. Honey. Just try and rest now, you've had too much to drink. We're just helping you." A soothing smile trying to reassure me everything was okay. Am I dreaming, Mom?" I asked with a groggy, trying to give my mom an easy out. I did this in case it was awkward for us later, I could play the dream card and ignore what happened. Oh sweetheart, shoo, just rest now. Everything will be okay, just shut your eyes. Let us help you. Without notice my aunt collapsed on the other side me. We all together trying to catch our breath. TOB continued, copyright 2024 all rights reserved. No part of this story can be reproduced in any form or by any electronic or mechanical means without written permission from the author. All characters are fictitious, and any similarity to actual people, living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental unless otherwise state. Dear friends, thank you very much for watching. Leave comments, put likes, share with friends and subscribe to the channel. Story 2, welcome to Secret Story. Dear friends, thank you very much for watching. Leave comments, put likes, share with friends and subscribe to the channel. Welcome to Secret Story. My story starts on a mid-October night. I had just finished playing a show with my band in a nearby city. My wife had come to watch the show as usual. Unlike most of our shows which were late at night, this show was during the day. Normally we would ride together, but this time she had errands to run after, so we drove separately. After the show, I made my way home. As I drove, my mind was distracted by a fantasy I had been entertaining for some time. My wife's mother, Linda, was traveling through our city on her way to visit friends in Florida. We offered to let her stay with us for the day while she waited for her connecting flight. That I knew she was coming, and I also knew I would be home alone with her until my wife was done with her errands. It was a forbidden lust, but I had been thinking about what it would be like to take her. It was a novelty fantasy that I never expected to come true. By the time I got home, my brain was lost in thoughts. I pulled into the driveway, saw her car, and my heart fluttered. After I parked, I made my way to the door. As I went, I had to adjust myself and pull my jacket lower to hide my visible excitement. That I took one deep breath to bring me back to reality before I opened the door. I went inside and was immediately greeted by Linda. "Hi," she said. "You made it," I said, closing the door and walking up the steps of our split-level home. As I reached upstairs, I saw her sitting on the couch watching TV. She was smiling and asked, "How did the show go?" She looked beautiful. She had always taken care of herself and been a fitness fanatic. It showed. You would never guess she was in her 50s. I let my eyes drift over her and did my best not to let them give away where I was looking. She was wearing a white blouse. The material was thin. She also wore tight jeans that were snug to her body and showed just how toned her legs were. Seeing her only made the visions in my head get more intense. "It went great," I said when I recovered my thought process. That I realized that I stared longer than I intended. She smiled back at me, and I could feel my face turning red. Her smile was mostly innocent, but there was a hint of something else in it. I couldn't help but worry that I had made the moment awkward for her. I was relieved when she stopped looking at me and went back to watching TV. "I am going to change," I said as I tried to change the subject. Truth be told, I wanted to go down the stairs and let my fantasy play out in my head before my wife got home. She looked at me, still with a slight smile, and said, "Okay." Her tone said she had thought nothing of what I'd done or said, but that smile was still there and it tormented me. Did she know? I walked down the steps into the basement, which we had turned into the master bedroom and my office for work. As I walked down the stairs, I went to unzip my jacket and realized that at some point between coming in the house and going down the stairs that I wasn't sure when that had happened, but I hoped it was on my way down the stairs. I felt a rush of worry that my mother-in-law may have just witnessed something unwanted, and I may have just created weirdness. That thought didn't last long and I shrugged off the idea. If she was uncomfortable, she would have let me know, which was my final thought on the matter. She had always been quite vocal about things that upset her, and she would have done something besides smile had she been offended. Or that's what I told myself. By the time I got to the bedroom, I had moved past my fears and started to focus on my fantasy again. I changed into my evening attire, PJ pants and a t-shirt. I was uncertain when my wife would be home, and with my mother-in-law upstairs, I didn't dare take care of my issue undressed. Instead, I sat at my desk and just let my mind wander. I am not sure how long I was in my chair, but my fantasies were playing in my head and I was lost in thought. My breathing had also started to get heavy. I enjoyed my thoughts. What time will Gina be home? The question jerked me out of my thoughts and caught me completely off guard. I did not do well at hiding my surprise. I sat up in my chair quickly and got up to face Linda. My intent was to show nothing going on here, but it had the opposite effect that as soon as I stood to face her, I realized my mistake. My PJ pants did nothing to hide. Linda's eyes immediately left mine, and she glanced down flustered and busted. I quickly covered myself. The only words I could get out were, I had to have looked like an idiot. Linda smiled again, but this time there was mischief in her expression. Having problems? She asked that it was strange, but the moment wasn't awkward. She was being playful, and it came across as teasing. Sorry, I didn't hear you coming, was the only thing I could think of to say. She took a step towards me, still smiling, and asked again. Do you know when Gina will be home? I'm not sure. It shouldn't be too long. Maybe 30 minutes, I responded, still befuddled. She started to turn her body as if she was headed upstairs but then paused. What has you so worked up? She asked with that smile still on her face. She knew that I am not sure why I didn't say something like nothing or Gina, but instead, I blurted out, you don't want to know. I chuckled as I said that as soon as the words left my mouth, I realized their implications. She stopped and turned back toward me. Her smile changed from mischievous to something else. She was enjoying this and was not at all put off by it. Seeing her look at me made my heart race. Was this really happening? Oh really? She said as she turned back to face me. Now I want to know. She asked and took another step toward me that I didn't answer right away. Instead, I just smiled. My head was racing. She looked amazing, and I wanted her, but even with her practically telling me she wanted to hear me say it, I still had this voice in my head that screamed to be careful. That I finally compromised my lust and my inner worried voice and said, let's just say you look good in that outfit. Linda was obviously pleased with my answer. Really? She said, and she glanced down at her body. She didn't need to look, she knew damn well she looked good. She had never shied from wearing outfits that showed off her curves. That I swallowed hard and confirmed, really. I stood there like a dork. Thinking back, I keep going over how dumb I must have looked, but my head was lost. I often think of all the smooth things I could have said, but alas, really was all that came out. She took one more step towards me. And her expression changed. She didn't have the teasing smile I had seen earlier. Instead, there was a look of intrigue. And I caused that? She asked, letting her eyes drift to my center. That I took a deep breath. I no longer had that scared voice telling me to be careful. My head was lost in lust, and all I wanted was to taste her lips and pull her close. You did. Again, I wish I had thought of something much more seductive to say. What are you thinking exactly? She asked, taking another step and raising an eyebrow. My mouth open but nothing came out. There was no way I could tell my mother-in-law the thoughts that were going through my head. She was now directly in front of me. I could smell her perfume. And it was intoxicating. I abandoned caution and let my eyes visibly trace over her body. I stared at her neck and worked my way down her body, taking in every detail. I then traced my view back to her face. In my peripheral vision, I could see her watching me as I took her in. There was a satisfied grin on her face as I did. When my vision did return to her face, we locked eyes. The air was thick with desire. I knew it, and she knew it. We both sat there for what seemed like a long time. We both wanted the same thing. Again, I stood there like an idiot. If I don't know what the problem is, I can't help fix it, she said, raising an eyebrow. She was clearly teasing me now. I want you. Again, my response was anything but smooth. She took a half step towards me and looked into my eyes. As she did that, I took a half step towards her and closed the distance. Still looking at me, she leaned closer and feeling her soft body press against me was too much. And I abandoned restraint that I released my hands and moved them to her wrists. As I did, my member pressed forward and came to rest against her body. The slight sensation took my breath, and she noticed that I let my palms rest against her outer arms and slid them up to her shoulders. Our eyes stayed locked until our faces met. The feel of her lips on mine was incredible. The first kiss was timid and almost a test to see if she would kiss me back. She did. One kiss turned into two, and then more. Each kiss was longer and more intense than the one before it. Does this help? She asked, looking at me shyly. Her voice had changed, and the question sounded beautiful. I gripped her shoulders and leaned my forehead against hers, still breathing erratically. I responded, God, that feels good. I hadn't really recovered, but I was able to control my breathing enough to kiss her again. We stayed there for a while, only the gods know how long. I could feel myself getting close to release. I backed away slightly and then raised my hands and pulled on her jacket. She held her arms to her sides, and the jacket fell to the floor. I grabbed her and pushed her against the nearest wall. I used my left hand to keep her against the wall, and I stood back for a moment. She kissed me one more time and then pushed me back slightly. I stepped back, unsure of why. She looked at me with a seductive look. They were absolutely gorgeous, firm and well-shaped. They were resting, just waiting for me to explore. She reached out to me and pulled me close again. More kissing. I paid attention every time she responded. I wanted to know exactly what she enjoyed. I wanted to please her as much as she was me, if at all possible. Her face was beautiful. I had reached the point of need and couldn't resist anymore. Gina is going to be home any minute, and I am not, she emphasized. Getting caught, my son-in-law. Her words were not a rebuke by any means, and the fact she struggled to say the words let me know this was not unwanted, that I was still breathing heavily. I wasn't sure what to do. My brain was desperate. What do we have time for? I thought. She smiled at me again, this time with a sly look. She brought her hand up to my chest and pushed me back slightly. I didn't resist and took a step back. My heart was racing at this point. I knew what she was going to do, and I needed it. She clearly knew what she was doing. I could feel myself as I moved closer and closer to release. My breath grew heavier, became more frequent. I grabbed her hair and took control of her head. She did not protest. I wanted to make sure I could see if she was uncomfortable. But there were no signs of discomfort. It was heavenly. At one point I had to stop her. I'm close, I struggled to say. I wasn't sure if she would be willing to swallow the load I was about to release. There was no way I was going to do something that might jeopardize a future tryst that could result in what I really wanted. Just then, my phone buzzed. The sensation caught me off guard. Gina always lets me know when she was just about home. She would ask if I needed anything before she got there. I didn't need to check my phone to know what it meant. We have about 5 minutes. I was short of breath. Then we better hurry, Linda said with an evil grin. She reached for my hands and put them on her head again just before taking me. She almost giggled. I will. I warned one last time. She pulled back quickly and stood up. I would be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed. She leaned in and started kissing me again. It was all I could do to stay standing. I felt as my body started to quiver. She continued to look into my eyes, now smiling with satisfaction that I exploded, and it was intense. She didn't try to get out of the way when a light came through the window. Gina was home. Linda shot me one more lustful look and then released me. She grabbed her jacket and, without a word, turned to walk upstairs. I was still standing there, stunned. I was lightheaded, and my legs were rubber. At the bottom of the stairs, she turned and looked at me one more time. She smiled and then headed upstairs. Knowing I was short on time, I forced myself to move towards my PJ bottoms. Hello, Gina said cheerfully as she walked through the door. Linda was in the bathroom, redressing and cleaning up, if I had to guess. I tried to say hello back, but I was still struggling them why pants on. I had just made it to my chair when Gina came to check on me. "Hello," she said again as she walked into the room. She looked confused. "Hi baby," I said, trying to look normal. "Where's Mom?" she asked. "Up here," Linda said, coming out of the bathroom. The rest of the night was strange. Gina and I stayed upstairs with Linda until she had to leave for the airport. It was like nothing had happened. She didn't give me any looks. It was business as usual. Even when she did leave, she gave us both a hug and headed out. It was platonic again, but I still remember she said she didn't want to get caught her son-in-law. The key word being caught. That is much different than her not wanting to her son-in-law. Let's hope there is a part 2 to this. Copyright 2024, all rights reserved. No part of this story can be reproduced in any form or by any electronic or mechanical means without written permission from the author. All characters are fictitious. And any similarity to actual people, living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental unless otherwise stated. Dear friends, thank you very much for watching. Leave comments, put likes, share with friends and subscribe to the channel.